So, turn this guy on. So you and I are going to watch this screen here, sorry.
That's all right.
And what's going to happen is that the light on me is going to be changed by you, and then we'll just check out the difference right here in the screen.
Okay.
You can see it, just you standing there. You'll be able to see, oh yeah, the shadows are softer, or the shadows are non-existent, or we've done something to change this or that. But when you look at it on the monitor, that's when it'll come home to be like, okay, now that's what the camera sees.
Okay.
Because that is very different from what you and I see.
Yeah, okay.
All right. And that's really the only one that matters. Because you can see one way all day long. Still ain't gonna make a difference. All right. So let's talk about this one before we get into it. This one is, hold on for me, please. This one is the ICANN. Now, I think it's a 500 LED light. These are the barn doors, or the flags, as they call them. Now, you'll note that they have reflective surfaces on all of them, and that's to do a good job of both focusing and dispersing that light.
Okay, makes sense.
And I'll show you how to do that. So on the back here, turn this guy around. Shouldn't do that unless it's loose. And tighten it back down every time you move it. Loosen it to move it and tighten it back down. Seems common sense, but not everybody does. All right, so this is actually a touchpad response system. You can actually turn up the dimmer and down. And you can actually see on the wall.
Yeah.
It grows brighter and darker. If you go to 100%, it's really not even that bad. We can turn it around and look at it, and it's a little bit bright, but it only takes a second before you get used to it. You know what I mean? And let's look at ourselves over here. Stand on this side of me.
Yep.
If you'll note, that really doesn't look that bright on the screen, because looking directly at it here is nothing like looking directly at it on the monitor.
Yeah.
Right. So now let's have. I'm going to just stay where I'm at. Why don't you come over here to this side? And what I want you to do is, keeping your eye on the monitor, see at, I want you to check out how what you're doing affects the lightness on me.
Turn the dimmer down?
Yeah, we can turn the dimmer down a little bit.
Oh, I was just saying, is that what you want me to do?
Yeah, for now. Go down to like 50. Is that it?
It's going down.
It doesn't feel like 50.
Yeah, no.
It's also not hot. The biggest difference that studio professionals will tell you that they love about LEDs is that it's not like, it doesn't make them sweat. Mm-hmm. It looks like it should make you sweat, but it doesn't. So, all right, what we're going to do with the flags is bring them in and out, and then see what that light does. So go ahead and kind of look on this side of it, and what I'm going to do is point them in to about like this. All right, and what that does is, instead of opening it wide to where the light not only is coming from here, but bounces among the flags and focuses, and disperses, but now that it's here. So looking on the monitor, the difference between this, which covers the entire front and floods me up underneath my neck, this little space in my mouth, when I open my mouth, like everything is full of light, right? It just covers me. But then when we focus it, even though it's not pointed directly at my face, it does a good job at looking a little bit more natural, because you can see on this side,
Yeah, there's actually some shadows.
Yeah, you can see the jawline a little bit and things like that, and I'm more defined. I've got even shadows in here. So all that light, what it does is it bounces around so much that it fills in all of these little shadows. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Like per whatever your situation happens to be at the time, that's what you're going to be doing. Now, if we mount this guy on the, we'll say, dolly, and walk that in, or dolly that in slowly on guitarist with his, with his mic or whatever, that's going to fill all of that space, and we can test it out. And if it looks good, right?
Right.
But the point is that essentially you're going to want to kind of, when you step back and look at it in person, you can say, oh, it's sufficient light. But really the key is to look on the monitor. You would want to dolly into the guy if you're going to use this light. Say, okay, are the shadows good? Are they hard? Are they hard enough? Are they soft or are they soft enough? Right, things like that.
Okay.
All right, so now let's turn it down to about 20. Now that looks actually quite a bit better, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that looks better? Before I get into
Well, I mean, it's dimmer. There's not as much like extreme light right on you, so it's not filling in the shadows so much on you. So like on one side, there's some definition.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got.
Think about more than just me.
Think about more than just you.
I mean, I'm the subject.
The area behind you is kind of like, it's not solid black now. You can see a little bit of the shape in it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's very specific. But in general, you know, you can see the background.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so blown out onto the monitor that nothing else is important, right? So that's the other thing. The reason that this gets so bright when it's at 100 is because people want it far away, but they still want that light.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're shooting a wide shot, like say of a band, you know, you don't want a lot of light, but you don't want the stand right in the middle of the shot. Right? So you don't want to fill that light. You're going to want 3 or 4 of these set up kind of like panels and just kind of flood that whole scene with light. Just drench it in light where there's no shadows. Mm-hmm. Or if you do want really hard and focused shadows to make it look uncomfortable on the eyes, you can mount them higher and point it down.
Okay.
Or behind them and point it forward, or like up above and point down so their shadows are actually on.
Like in front of them, yeah. Okay.
Maybe even turning off the house light so that you can create even a harder one. Because if we have the LEDs, no matter what you do, it's going to be kind of a soft shadow until you get like closer to it, like that. See that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can only even tell that that's the reflection of a hand or a shadow of a hand. You get pretty close to it. So the closer these are and the farther away that they're going to determine softness and hardness as well.
Okay.
All right? So that's one. I'm a big guy. And so if I want to be lit like, if I was Lauren and I'd be standing about here, this would probably be appropriate. But as it stands, people are going to be looking up my nose with this light,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there are most of this light is below my nose. Right, so what we'll want to do is for somebody like me, automatically you're going to look at me and be like, okay, we need a highlight for that guy. So we're going to mount this up here, and there's a knuckle right here, where you can actually angle it down. I have no idea why it's an oblong angle like that, but lock that down, turn it. Oh, I'm loosening it already. All right. Now, to my mind, I look at that monitor and I think that I'm still blown out. All right?
Yeah, I'd say that.
Let's not even worry about the temperature, which is at 56K. Let's bring this down, because I don't want this light being too far away, too much further away. But I'll cut that light in half, and we'll see what that looks like. See, that to me looks a lot more comfortable. If I bring that in, why don't you stand where I was standing for a second, because I need to get up close to this. So there's some decent definition, but what I would like to see is even less. Now, how do I, because we're at 8% on this light.
Mm-hmm.
How do I not change that, but not necessarily have that as bright?
I mean, moving it a little bit farther away.
We can move it away.
Moving the flaps.
Yeah, you can move the flaps. You could close them in and limit the amount of light that actually comes out, which immediately impacts it. Almost.
Yeah, that does a lot.
I can't move out of the way. Can I? Yeah, so you hit both of them right on the head. So let's do that, and then you get your change, and then let's do this, and you also get your change, right?
Yeah.
So there's that option, and there's also a third option, and that is filling the rest of the scene with light.
Okay.
And that's the benefit of a 3-point lighting system, all right? Let's actually, I like where that's at on you, so let's leave that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go with a low one here, because as you'll note, right on your, no matter where I stand, I'm going to be in the way, aren't I? On your face, the light comes in here. Mm-hmm. You've got a hard shadow right at the V of your neck there, and then you know, you've got a little bit of like the lines in your neck, right? You can see all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but if you don't want to see it, let's see if we can fill that light with something else. It's no coincidence that this is called a filament. You're filling in that area. I don't like that it's so low because it's got now too much of your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And this one also turns up and down, as you'll note. All right, I like that. If I move it in a little bit or I move it back, it does a different job, just like you're pointing out in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just kind of gives it a little more or a little less intensity. So we'll leave that one there, but what I really want to do is get rid of that hard shadow right underneath. How do I do that?
I guess like light coming up from under me.
You could, yeah, you could experiment with that. But probably your best bet is to put a light behind the source of the camera. Behind the camera.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm going to do is just, since the monitor's here, and that's, we'll just pretend that the camera's there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to angle this toward you. I'm going to bring it up to about where that level of light is. I'm going to crank it. All right. It gets rid of that light. I mean, you can barely see it. So now it's
much softer,
quite faint, but you'll note that that's crazy bright.
Yeah.
Right. So how are we going to combat that?
Some nice sunglasses.
Nice sunglasses.
I guess distance, but you still, if you go too far away, then you're gonna get rid of the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So
There's one more thing that I haven't mentioned that we can do, and that is to diffuse the light a little more.
oh, okay. I was thinking like flaps more, but yeah, diffusing a little different, same idea.
Yep, this guy has what they call gels. You can slide a gel in there. It doesn't do a whole lot because of the light not being as good a quality as it could be, but it does a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It disperses it in a different path, or more paths, I guess is a better way to say that. All right. All right. Now, if all of that stuff, if you've done all that stuff and it still doesn't work, then we've got a different problem, and that is that those are just simply too intense. Right?
Okay.
Then we turn those down. Now we're talking about something that we can have complete control over. That's why studios are so effective. Now, if you're outside, you just have to put up with bright lights. But if you're inside in the studio, you can do things like this and disperse the light or turn it down and things like that. Now, we're coming off as pretty blue in there.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things you can do about that. This one can actually change the color temperature. This one, you have to put a gel on. But we can also white balance over here for something different on the camera itself. I'm going to leave it because it's set on auto, and I don't want to focus on that for the moment. But we'll put a cyan gel in. What that's going to do is, it doesn't, what I was hoping it would do is cue the camera to white balance to a different temperature, but it's kind of doing that. I'm going to put the yellow one in there though. And putting the yellow one in there will basically, this is rated to bring it up to the temperature of 5600. Probably been a little while since I've taken these out. All right, so now we've got a little bit more natural, like flesh tone feel to them. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, so I'll stand back over here and let you fiddle around with the lights, but
Okay.
let's, I'll give you these guys. You can mess with those, but I really kind of I want to have a guinea pig up here and be allowed to just kind of talk to you. But so to kind of briefly cover, we've got a front light, which is going to be a key light. It's what you call a key light. This one we're actually kind of using for the moment as a fill light. This one would kind of be our key, and then we've got a background, and that would be the background. It's also called a rim light because if you put that behind you, what it would do is accent kind of like just a small portion, just a tiny little, almost unnoticeable, we could just put like a little flare on the other side. Let me actually turn this guy off. I want to do that with this. And what you'll see on the monitor, I'll angle this up toward the back of my head. Hopefully it'll just do what I want it to do. All right, it does. Now, let me step where you're at, so it's a little more centered. And let's get that off camera. All right, so actually, let me get your, bring your hand over here, where my hand is, and you see the little nozzle? Turn it off.
Would that be down?
Yeah, it'd be the other way. All right, now, right now you see that there's very little differentiation. Can you see the monitor?
Yeah, I was just saying that one's just a little bit in the way.
All right. There's very little differentiation right now between my right arm and the background, like the what do you call this thing? Curtain. Now turn it on. And you don't even have to turn it to its bottom setting just before it turns off. All right. All right, see that?
Yeah.
And it's just that little bit. That's all it has to be. I'm not even facing the light at all.
Yeah.
I'm facing away from the light. I'm facing the camera, and still, now we have that little rim light that just. It's all it does is fill that space. It separates me a little bit more from that background, and as you've noticed, it's on its lowest setting.
Yeah, that's enough right there.
So you don't need your rim light is one that uses probably the least power of all of them.
Okay.
So the front, the key, the fill, whichever one that ends up being, are kind of use the most power, and your rim light just kind of, all it does is it just kind of hits the side of your face. Why don't you go up to the monitor a little bit, since it's a small monitor, you can actually look on this side of my face, right?
Yeah.
And on this side of my arm. It's just enough to like hint or accent just slightly to where it's just noticeable. And now just stay where you're at. And that's the difference.
Yeah, your face is way darker for one.
I mean, it's like, it's much more agreeable on the eyes to kind of separate me from the background. This is a normal situation. Now, let's say you had like an emotional, deeply like, you've got this guy who's lost his kid in the war, and you're doing a documentary on fathers in the local area who, their sons never returned from Iraq, right? You would want to do certain things with the light that either metaphorically, metaphysically, or in some metacognitive way do what the emotionality of the situation you want to present to your audience.
Okay.
Right? If you want to blend him in with the background of like he's in his favorite chair, you wouldn't want to separate him too much from that chair, right?
Right.
It's very subliminal and subconscious, but your audience will pick that up in some way. Either they're going to be more attached to the situation or they won't. You'll have to test those things out when you're there, but whichever one works better, that's the one that works better. And your light will help you do that. Where you position the camera. Right now, I'm being overpowered by the camera. This is the position, as you'll note. Have you ever seen Tosh.0? This is how he likes to do it. He likes to have himself small, have the curtain behind him, and the camera's probably about, per capita, per my height, per his height. He's probably like this tall or whatever, but the camera's above him. And it kind of comes down and sweeps over left and right, and it paints the background. He only takes up a small area of that screen.
Right.
He stands up too. He's always standing when he does his thing. And he just he looks to the side and he says, this YouTube video says something about this, famous person or whatever. And then he just goes on and talks about it. The camera just kind of moves to the side and it gives a space for the guys down in the booth to load that second frame, and he's always overpowered by something. And he uses his audience, and stuff like that. So his lighting, I'm almost positive it's all front lighting. He doesn't need any of those keys or rim light, because it's just painted with light.
So I get the filters, but when would I want to use certain ones?
Right. Good.
Kind of just
good question.
Knowing.
So the lights above us, I believe, whenever they turn on, they're 56. 5,600. That's the temperature of the sun. The reason that this looked better when we put it on is because this is rated for that same thing.
Okay, so these change like what the temperature looks
Not
like?
the light, yep.
Okay.
And so this one won't. This one is
That's
just a clear one.
So that one just disperses it more?
Yeah.
All right.
Makes it more diffuse. This one is for use in fluorescent lighting.
Okay.
And so that basically, there's only 3 gels. There's a lot more in more complicated cinematography, but for
our purposes.
my humble purposes, yes,
Yeah.
I have those.
Okay.
So whenever you're in a situation you can't control, like you have to have an interview at the union or something, I guarantee they don't care what the color temperature of their light is, they just want cheap lights. So you need to know that and adapt with it.
Okay.
So, it's another neat little technique you can do. Oh, this thing's directly behind me. Little light directly behind me, which just ignites my back end. And they do it a lot in photography, more or less. More than see, you can you can see that little underarm rim whenever I'm talking or using my voice. If I turn to the side, it you can see it through the beard or whatever. Should actually step over here so you can actually see me. Okay. It kind of gives you a holy presence.
Yeah.
Right? And let's go ahead and turn this one off, or at least move it away so that I'm not overpowered. Yeah, and what it just does, it just barely
Right,
accents you.
right.
Just enough to sort of be like, right?
Yeah.
The side of your hair is accented. And these things, the audience is never going to look at that shot and be like, oh, he's got a background light that's,
right.
that he's using as a rim. They're never going to put that together. They're just going to be like, that looks different somehow. I don't know why, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Why is it interesting? Who gives a shit? There's music going on, and there's sentiment playing out, and there's a plot, and So it's up to you to create the environment in which your audience has the freedom to put those things in mentally. So, and you can very effectively do that with lighting. And that's actually a much better position, I think.
Yeah, because that's like kind of where it would be as the key light.
Yep. Yeah, if that were right here, right next to the camera, right off camera. And both of us are.
It's pretty. So is this like pretty blue? This like kind of color temperature?
We're both pretty blue.
Yeah.
Well, the flesh tone really is what you're going to be looking
Right.
at. And we're both pretty blue. So I'd have to actually wipe balance the camera in a different way to do that. Let's see if I can do that. And not mess it up too much. All right, so if I set it to iris, that'll open me up. And then you're in focus. All right, so it's at 3200, that's why. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, the tones themselves on the floor even look more natural. When I look here and then I look to the ground.
Yeah, there's a huge
Pretty much
difference.
the same color. So all of that stuff needs to be taken into consideration. That really shouldn't be hanging like that. Feel bad about that. But all right, so let's do one more. Hang out right there.
Okay.
So now I want you to direct me. Look at yourself in the monitor and tell me where you want this light, how far away, how bright.
A couple more feet back.
Okay. Where I'm at?
Yeah, right about there. And facing me.
High, low, come straight in.
I think a little lower.
Or lower?
Yeah. Yeah, like there.
Yeah, that fills nicely. That fills.
That like got rid of all the hard shadows in my chest area.
Yep. You know, this is even a good spot if you're interviewing someone because that light paints this really cool, like, I mean, the rim on me is even more effective than it is on you.
Yeah, yeah.
If you were to face me and say, oh, so what do you think about the issues surrounding the campus loitering problem or something, you know? And, you know, that would be good, right?
Yeah.
That's neat. Because this one, if we're going to do anything about it, we would do that with it probably. So that, that it fills
that looks better.
Yeah, so keep that in mind when, if the two guitarists are here,
Yeah.
right? That paints me well. It gives you that rim light on that side, and it, you know, this guy here takes care of me. We could even have another one of those over here to take care of any hard shadows on your right side.
Yeah.
And we probably wouldn't want to have so powerful a shot.
Yeah.
So let's see what moving that guy down does, and that'll change the light, you know, the visual palette of the light as well. You really do look like a host right now. Oh yeah. All right, so let's move this. I guess right there is probably good. Let's go move back up. By the way, the reason that it's moving up is because I have not done my cabling as well as I should have. This should never be attached like this.
That would, you obviously want like all the way on the ground.
Not only do you want it on the ground, what you're going to do is run it back this way, and you're going to put
I saw you do that earlier.
and all the way back. You know, but you and I would need to be standing back there looking at it when that happens. So clearly we don't have a model up here to do that with. So looking at that, this would be a good place to position people. If we had the band in here or something like that, it would be nice to come in and take a couple of backlights and things. One thing I should probably suggest is for you guys to bring in, you know, they have the little can lights, like the regular bulb screws in, it's got the sort of silver aluminum thing you can just mount in places. I'm sure we have like some yellow gels and things like that we can put up, coordinate the lights. Well, let's see what this looks like over here. All right, so the hard shadow is not completely killed by this, but comes in pretty close. That's actually a little overpowering.
Yeah, it makes me a little too bright.
So we could bring that back, or we could turn it down. You can also angle it in a little bit, point it at you. If these had barn doors on them, we could close the barn doors a little bit.
So you mentioned it a couple times. Is it a thing to like blast someone with almost too much light and then bring your white balance down and kind of mess with it that way? Or is it better to...
It wouldn't be a white balance that you would bring down. It would actually be the iris.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same thing on a camera as the aperture. And what that would do was let in less light. That's actually something that they do quite a bit. And what too much light does is it kills any kind of facial blemishes. If you got a pimple or something like that, gone. It makes it look like eyes, nostril holes, mouth. You know what I mean? And then when they close that aperture a little bit, close that iris a little bit, it kind of looks normal.
Okay.
But it still bleeds out all of that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's very effective in news broadcasting and things like that. It just looks creepy on me. So it's real easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take much to make it look dramatically different.
Yeah, kind of common sense, kind of knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. I have a much more in-depth workshop that I want to do just on lighting. But I mean, really, when it comes down to it, I could talk for 5 hours, or you could just play with the lights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make it look good. So distance from the subject, intensity of the light, color of the light, using the flags. What else? The elevation, the angling. of the head itself, and then
How
obviously
many,
the
really?
positioning,
Yeah.
behind you, keying it, flooding it, rimming it, whatever. And how many? Yeah, you could have a giant panel of lights if you want.
So 3-panel is the most, like having 3 lights is probably the most common?
That's your standard
Or-
for like interviews.
Oh, okay.
You know that when anybody talks about lighting, most of the time they're going to be referring to a 3-point lighting system. But you can get away with all of the stuff that we're doing right now. You can, in one sense or another, you can actually get away with just one light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's another thing that we haven't really discussed is called bouncing light.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have somebody with a bounce card sitting
Mhm.
right next to you, filling all this, stuff in here, and you'd have no
Yeah, that's what
shadows.
you're getting at with like the hallway sheets
Yeah.
and have the mystic shot. Yeah.
Yeah, you completely saturate that scene with light.
Mhm.
With them, and it wouldn't be expensive. It wouldn't be quality light, but it wouldn't be like, you could white balance and make it look great.
Right.